Lorenzo, the Ace Eater, versus Isagi Yuichi, the Neo Egoist. This matchup in particular is a pretty controversial one, I'd say. You have Isagi, which is arguably already past or on the level of the new Gen 11s, and you have Lorenzo, who is one of the new Gen 11, being the world's best U20 CB. So it's interesting to say the least, right? So I wanna talk about how Lorenzo would fare up against Isagi and vice versa, right? So that's what we will be getting into today. So first, let's break down, the obvious points. So first, let's go over field IQ, which, Isagi has a dozen more and very impressive feats than Lorenzo has. Although the most notable one, which was done on his team, was him and Hiyori, completely surpassing the Uber's team by using Reflex X Reflex. Isagi was also able to predict Chris Prince's shot, which is a better feat than anything Lorenzo has showcased so far. Just doubling down on it, Isagi was also the fastest to react to the disarray. That was the last play of the PXG game to score the last goal. Lorenzo's highest field IQ feat is just being able to calculate where the pass from Kaiser was coming at precisely, which was the pass Ness has sent, which again is a good feat. It's just not anything on the level of what Isagi has done. Even Isagi's watered down feats are pretty better than Lorenzo's current field IQ feats. But let's move on to what they can do physically as a player, right? So I have Lorenzo being the more physically dominant player, although Isagi has made major physical improvements and is way better than what he used to be in the U20 game. When it came to strength, we actually do have a direct scale to use by looking back at the Uber's game. At the start of the game, Ness is capable of knocking Isagi off balance, which would require him to, at the bare minimum, relative strength with Isagi, or just outright being stronger than him. This will be consistent with their stat sheets as well since the start of the NEL. Why this is important is because very shortly after this, Lorenzo makes light work of Ness, being able to body block him from the ball without moving an inch at all. So it would basically be Lorenzo over Ness equal to Isagi in a sort, equal or over Isagi to a sort, right? So that's how you would kind of get Lorenzo over Isagi physically. Now, in terms of their offensive capabilities, Isagi has a pretty in-tune offensive strategy and a few backup plans if that doesn't work. Isagi has his double gun volley now, metavision, and his off-the-ball movements are some of the best we've seen in the series. The double gun volley and metavision are both world-class weapons that can be used on offense, while Don, on the other hand, has more of a midfielder's offense. Now, what I mean by that is due to the fact that Don is more of a utility player than a striker who relies on their offense. Don on offense usually relies on his zombie dribbling and his passes. The Uber system is good, but it limits his players' potentials. But that's for another video. I'll talk about that in another video. As for now, Isagi does have the way better offense with way better weapons suited for his offense and just more mix-up options when it comes to what he can do on the offensive end compared to Lorenzo. Now, for defense, I'm pretty sure anybody can guess this, but Lorenzo does have better defense than Isagi, and let me explain why. Now, this one was a bit more interesting since Isagi is a striker that is memed to play more defense than his actual defenders. Isagi has been able to block Chris Prince's shot, although this feat that people glaze too much, since Isagi objectively needs another player to help do anything of this magnitude. It's more of a field IQ feat than defense. Isagi's interceptions are pretty good, although again, most of these are due to the way Isagi views the field. He's more predicting these spots than actually in real time reacting to them. Now, Don, on the other hand, has a statement that puts him as the world's best U20 CB. So just with that alone would put him above Isagi on defense. But let's humor it real quick and hypothetically say it doesn't put him over Isagi. Let's look at all the feats Lorenzo has performed and the context behind it, along with a few notes that solidify him as a crazy threat on defense. Firstly, Lorenzo was able to pinpoint the pass to Kaiser and immediately shut him down. Kaiser also does note shortly after this, while Lorenzo is on him, he can't do anything. That would mean Lorenzo's defense is even capable of shutting all of Kaiser's weapons down, and Kaiser's metavision, off the ball, and his kicking speed all just die against Lorenzo. This is also pretty consistent since Kaiser's only goal in this game is when Lorenzo wasn't marking him. On top of this, to reinforce the fact Lorenzo was able to react to and stop the Kaiser impact that even Aiku and Ardu couldn't stop, which is just further reinforcing the fact that Kaiser can't do anything with Lorenzo focusing on him. So I do think, in a way, this is more impressive than what like anything Isagi has done on his own. In regards to dribbling, getting off of defense, in regards to dribbling, I think the zombie dribbling clears anything Isagi's capable of doing. Isagi has really good one-touch movement and, good way of getting past opponents, but his dribbling is his specialty. And moving on to passing, in between their passing, I truly do think that it's an interesting contest, because I think Isagi's passing is pretty good when we're talking about how good he can run 1-2s with Higuri and Corona. But I do think Lorenzo's passing is better if we're talking about the long range passing and how good he is at getting the ball up the field and, just transferring the offense or transferring the defense into the offense with quick counters, right? So it's about time I gave my verdict on this topic in general. So let's talk about this, right? So after going through all of their feats and scaling, after comparing them, I do have a verdict on who wins. I think in a 1v1 setting there isn't much Isagi can do that Lorenzo can't lock up. You can argue that the two-gun volley could catch Lorenzo off guard, but this is still the same guy that was reacting to the Kaiser impact with no issues. And also stops Kaiser from even getting any breathing room. So before you can even argue for two-gun, you'd have to argue if Isagi could even break Lorenzo's mark before getting the ball, or even get past him with his level of dribbling. The advantages in scaling are just all in Lorenzo's favor, and if you put Isagi on defense, it also just doesn't look good for him. So in a 1v1 setting, I think he clears on both sides of the field and as an overall player. Lorenzo is definitely more valuable considering he's the number 1v20 CB. Now, although I do think Isagi is smart and his metavision is great, going under the assumption that Lorenzo is a genius due to his bizarre body that allows him to do his zombie dribbling and his death mark, I don't think it's insane to say that he couldn't deem more valuable than Isagi when it comes to locking the ace of the team up or being a midfielder and lead counterattacks. So I'll give this one to Lorenzo, but it is very close and there are arguments for Isagi at the end of the Neo Egoist League. Although I just think any of his offensive feats get him, I just don't think any of his offensive feats get him past Lorenzo's defense. Isagi, also, I do just want to admit with the most recent chapter, Isagi also admitted inferiority to Lorenzo when it came to individual abilities alone. Which, how I interpreted this statement is Isagi saying, in regards to Lorenzo's death mark and what Lorenzo can do on his own and what he's capable of doing on his own, is something Isagi cannot do. Isagi usually needs a partner or a teammate to assist him or help him with what he's doing because he's a talented learner. But due to Lorenzo being a genius, like like Loki, because Loki is also included in the scheme where he says he feels individually inferior to Loki, Kaiser, and Lorenzo. Lorenzo and Loki are both geniuses, so I think, it's not crazy just to say that on an individual level, Loki is just better than Isagi, and Isagi feels that way too. So I don't think it's outright crazy, right? But that's pretty much all for this video, and I appreciate you guys for watching. I love to see your comments and your criticisms about this one because I was low-key stumped about this topic, but I have been working on it for a little bit. So I think all my arguments and my scaling is pretty concrete, but anybody can feel free to prove me wrong, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.